And today is actually quite special because I'm looking forward to introducing our two knowledge partners who have joined the UKIBC's higher education sector. So we're going to be hearing from them on this announcement, and they're the real experts in this space. So I will limit my bits just, to the key points that I wanted to share. So you all know me. I'm Tara Panjwani. We manage our higher education sector group, and we do these meetings on a quarterly basis. This is more for the new members who are joining. And now we have got Deloitte and Ketan and Co. as knowledge partners for our higher education sector, which is great because then they'll be able to share expert insights and answer any kind of questions on all the exciting developments that take place in the higher education space in India. So just to quickly, I'll do a quick introduction of Ketan and Deloitte, of Sahil and Monica, and then quickly give you an update on our activities because we have some exciting events lined up and coming. And then I'll pass it to Sahil and Monica to go through their kind of key points regarding Southampton's announcement, and then we would love to hear from you all in terms of any questions, so feel free to ask. And if we run out of time, you can always write to them separately. And just to say, we're going to record this session as well. Sorry, a few more people joining, so actually, it's a really good turnout. Thank you everybody for coming on such short notice. So actually, if I may, I'll just talk about our activities first, and then I'll introduce Sahil and Monica. So let me just get this out of the way. So this is upcoming activities for the next few months, not in order of date, more in order of importance. So 11th of November, hopefully you've all received the invite, well, the save the date invite now. If not, please let me know. But basically, we're going to be launching our new report, the University Collaborations Report. This is going to be done at India House on 11th of November. The time is, I think, from 4 to 6:30 p.m. It will include a panel discussion followed by networking drinks and the launch of our new report, which many of you have contributed to. So thank you so much for all your contributions. This report basically highlights the kind of R&D collaborations between UK universities and Indian universities and organizations. So it's actually a groundbreaking report. It's the first of its kind of documenting and recording all these collaborations. And we have got the blessings of the Deputy Indian High Commissioner, so which is why it is going to be at launch at India House. And then hopefully it will be an annually updated report. So we kind of keep updating with the various collaborations because we could only include a few. Obviously, there's so much more, but it's a start. So I really hope that you can all attend because what we do, we want to actually make it a really exciting program. So, which is why the next day we're holding our tech collaboration seminar in London. And that's done literally the next day so that the universities who would travel all the way to attend the event in London can stay back for this particular event, which is our tech collaboration seminar. Venue is still to be confirmed, but it will be a central London or Canary Wharf location. And that will be sort of the next morning. So if you have travel plans, please plan to arrive in London for the early afternoon of 11th of November till the kind of late afternoon of 12th of November. And for our members, we'll take you out for a dinner, if all goes according to plan, on the night of the 11th as well. So we'll do a nice little get together. We had done the same thing in March for our Future of Work conference. So we'd like to do that. And then we can all kind of chat in an informal environment. So it should be an exciting couple of days. Please do mark it in your diary. And if you haven't received an invite, let me know and we will get those out to you. So that's the most important thing for me. The other thing that we're working on, you might have also contributed to this, is our white paper on student and labor mobility, which we're working with our member firm Costells. And this will be submitted to the Labour Party in late October. So we'll keep you on track, and my colleague Vidhi is coordinating that. If you have any questions, you can ask her during the Q&A. We've also been invited to attend FICCI's Higher Education Summit in Delhi. I'll resend that invite with the rates. I've asked for discounted rates. So let's see. Normally, we would take a delegation to the FICCI Higher Education Summit, but this year it's not possible. So, but they're very keen for our universities to be there. So I will share that invite round again, and I'll double check on their side for kind of discounted rates for our group. And ongoing, we're exploring MOUs with a few select Indian universities, BITS Pilani, Shivnadar, Ashoka, and Flame, to name a few. So hopefully we will be seeing some announcements on that. That seems to be progressing quite well. And that's kind of to help our TNE work, so that if you want to, in a way, we're doing your due diligence for you if there are and obviously these are very well known Indian universities, so but if you want to select, you can kind of go through this route in terms of exploring TNE partnerships. So hopefully that's helpful. That's all in terms of upcoming activities. Any questions, just ask at the end. And before I just pass it over to Sahil, I just wanted to say, so Deloitte have come on as knowledge partners for the HE sector, and Sahil is actually our resident expert. He has been a partner at Deloitte South Asia for many years and has about 22 years of experience in helping foreign clients strategize their India entry. With respect to higher education, he's advised many foreign universities on the Indian regulatory landscape, worked closely with the regulators, UGC and Ministry of Education, to help them actually evolve these foreign university guidelines. So therefore, he is the person to ask any questions regarding that. And he's currently working with some foreign universities on their market entry strategy and to help them build a business plan. So I will pass it over to Sahil now. Sahil, thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Tara, and happy to be here. And thank you so much for everyone for joining and giving us the opportunity. I think, as Tara mentioned earlier, very exciting times for India, especially after the couple of weeks back when the announcement was made by the Ministry of Education and UGC to issue the first license to University of Southampton. I happened to be present at that event as well, and there was a big buzz around across all the trade commissioners and many of the university representatives that were there. So quite positive sentiments. And the result of that announcement has actually been that there is suddenly a surge of interest that we're seeing across UK universities, Australian universities, some US, some European, and a few Canadian as well. Suddenly the interest has gone very high. And when we were discussing it with Tara a few weeks back, Monica and I, the kind of thought came that why don't we kind of look at doing a briefing session in terms of how the announcement has looked like, what kind of process the government followed in India to issue the license, and how it kind of pans out for each of us. So just have a very few quick slides, just about 3 or 4 slides. I'm sure each of us have already gone through these guidelines, but just a quick summary of it so that everybody is kind of aware and we're on the same page. Let me know when my screen is visible, Tara.
Yes, thank you, Sal. We can see it, but not in full screen mode. Yeah, that's
Now?
better. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, as a first slide, I think it just sets a context. What are the various entry options that are available for foreign universities when they're looking at India market? Now, we can divide this into 2 or 3 different brackets. One is where we say it's unregulated businesses or activities where you do research partnerships and collaborations or do training programs in India for faculty or for the industry. You do student facilitations or pathway programs. And in those kind of activities, you do not need any permissions, licenses, any approval requirements from the government. You can set up an entity in India to do these things. 100% foreign ownership is possible. Another window is where you look at doing some collaborations with Indian institutions. These could be in the form of joint degree, dual degree, or twinning programs. And these, again, as I said, as a slide also says, it does not need any permissions from the government. You just need to enter into these collaborations. However, one needs to keep in mind certain conditions that need to be fulfilled as part of these collaboration arrangements. For instance, the Indian institution whom you're partnering with should have a accreditation score of 3 on a scale of 5. They should be either a top 100 Indian institution or top 1,000 global. Now, if you meet those conditions, you're happy, you're very free to kind of enter into those collaborations. Typically, a joint degree would be one where students are admitted into a program and the foreign institution and the Indian institutions offers a common joint degree. And in case of a dual degree, you would issue 2 degrees to the student. One would be issued by the time spent for the student at the Indian institution, and the second one would be issued at the time when the student is there at the foreign institution. Uh, Similarly, there are some models in India which kind of have picked up, and there are online degrees that are issued by the foreign institutions directly to students in India. Now, these are unregulated at the moment in India, and institutions can offer those programs. However, there are certain challenges that come practically when the student gets the degree and and is wanting to use that degree for getting job opportunities at the government circle level. In those situations, typically what the government says is you should have a degree from a scheduled or a listed university in India or a recognized university in India. And unfortunately, because the foreign institution is not registered in India or licensed in India, and therefore it becomes a slight challenge for getting the government jobs. But from a private sector perspective, they're very open about these online degrees received by the students in India. Now, given this background, I think what is more critical for us, and as we speak, is the other set of regulations where now the presence of foreign universities to set up their campus in India is allowed. You have full ownership possible, 100% ownership is possible. You do need a license or a permission from the government, which is in this case the UGC, from a UGC regulations point of view, or from the gift city regulators if you're looking at setting up a campus in the gift city. I'll just dwell a little bit more on these guidelines in the next slides. This is the UGC regulation, and this is where the Southampton University has taken window off. The guidelines are very, very flexible, very open. They went through a consultative process of about 9 months before they were formally announced. A lot of industry people, a lot of foreign universities, a lot of consulates and trade commissioners had actually contributed towards evolving of this policy. And I think it's come out very, very flexible, very open. I'm sure there are certain conditions, certain questions which we all have in mind. We'll be very happy to take those questions at the end. But just to give a quick summary of it, any foreign institution which fulfills the top 500 global ranking system can apply under these guidelines. If you do not follow any ranking systems and you do have some subject matter expertise, you can still apply. And the UGC will assess your expertise on the outstanding expertise that you possess, and basis that they will process your application. As I mentioned, 100% foreign ownership is possible. You need a license from the UGC. What is the best case is that it gives you complete operational autonomy in terms of how admissions have to be done, what fee structures you follow, what courses programs you offer, how do you hire the faculty in India, whether the faculty flies in from overseas home campus to kind of take courses and programs in India, how do you build the infra and facilities, repatriation of profits. All these are fairly open, flexible as per your own home country norms. The one limiting factor which they have put is, of course, the lectures in online media. I mean, online lectures. They've limited that at the moment to about 10% of the program requirements, but we expect these conditions to also get liberalized over a period of time. But at the moment, one will have to live with this condition. One most important thing from a UGC application point of view, and it's part of the guidelines as well, is the fact that the degrees have to be the same as what you issue in your home country. And therefore, in the case of University of Southampton, for example, the degree would be issued by University of Southampton, not by anyone else in India. So therefore, that's one important element to keep in mind. And the equivalence of the degree has to be established as well. One element which I think I've kind of got a lot of questions on as well is how do we kind of facilitate student pathways to come to our home campus? And if we have a presence in India, through a campus in India, can we continue to offer the student pathways? Unfortunately, the guidelines restrict any kind of promotional activities for programs done in your home campus at the moment. But the current arrangements that you have with the Indian agents, for example, those kind of arrangements can continue, and students can directly seek admissions in their home campus as well. Uh, just a quick summary to give the comparative of what gift city regulations allow and what UGC regulations allow. They are quite open from a content perspective, at least from an operational perspective. They both give you complete operational autonomy in terms of admissions, fee structures, hiring of faculty, degree equivalence is the same. The one difference is, of course, in the gift city guidelines today, the JV structures are not contemplated, whereas UGC guidelines specifically allow for JVs to be done as well, along with Indian institutions or with Indian companies. In the gift city regulations, since it is a financial hub which is created outside the territory of India, it is considered as that. So therefore, the courses and programs are limited to financial management, fintech, and STEM, whereas under the UGC guidelines, you're fairly open to do all courses and programs. Gift City guidelines do not restrict online courses, whereas as we saw in the earlier slide, in the UGC guideline, there is a restriction of 10% lectures to be done in online mode. Gift City does ask you to pay the fee payments in foreign currency. And therefore, from a student's point of view or from the parent's point of view, there is always an element of foreign exchange hedging that happens. And therefore, they do lose out when they convert their Indian rupees to foreign currency and when they make the fee payments. In the UGC guidelines, of course, the fee payments in INR, and therefore it's a little bit more financially stable from a parents and a student point of view is concerned. One big element is you get restricted under the Gift City guidelines to be only located in the Gift City region. You cannot operate outside of Gift City. In that case, you will need to look at the UGC guidelines again and come back under that window. Whereas under the UGC guidelines, you're free to kind of set up your campus anywhere in the country. Of course, if you look at setting up a campus today, let's say in Delhi, and if tomorrow you want to open a new campus in Mumbai, you would need to seek a separate and a specific approval from the UGC to open new campuses within India. Gift City has one positive advantage. Definitely, it does give you 100% tax holiday for 10 years of your first operations, whereas no such holiday or tax exemptions exist under the UGC guidelines. In terms of the whole regulatory process of the UGC guidelines, I think it's a fairly set process now. The online applications are made on a UGC portal. UGC then processes the application in a very quick time, and then they hand it over to a standing committee. The standing committee is made up of representatives from industry and academia in India, and they process the applications, they assess the applications from the credibility point of view of the applicant, the kind of programs that they're offering, what kind of infrastructure we will develop, and how the impact in the Indian ecosystem will happen. And basis that, they will give their suggestions to the UGC, and then UGC issues the letter of intent, the first set of license, the first phase of license. Uh, Once the LOI is issued, and this is the status of Southampton University today, they are having the letter of intent, which was issued about 2 weeks back. Then the applicant needs to make the entire campus operational for the next 2 years. This is let's say, quite a flexible window. In case you're taking time to kind of operationalize the campus, they will give you extensions as well. And once you're absolutely ready to start the operations, you seek a specific permission of UGC again, a plain paper application this time. There would be an inspection done of the campus, and basis that you would get the final license to operate your campus. Now, in terms of timelines, the the regulations are very clear: 60 days for the initial assessment, 60 days to issue the LOI. But what has taken time in the first set of license that has been issued today is the fact that India went through general elections, and there is a code of conduct that was put in place for about 3 months, and therefore nothing moved on that side. So therefore, if an applicant had made an application in Feb early this year, they would have got the license only now. So UGC is conscious of this fact. Uh, uh, Plus, the standing committee was also not in place at that point in time, but now the standing committee is in place. UGC is committed to processing the applications not in 120 days, the letter of intent. They are wanting to bring it down to about 60 to 80 days, and therefore the processing will be much quicker at this moment. Some key considerations that one must keep in mind while making an application, and this is basis our conversations with UGC and with the Ministry of Education officials. Some things which they consider very positive as part of the application. If you have research on day one in India, it's considered very welcoming. If you're partnering with industry, the academia, the community for India upliftment, and these could be around the programs and the government priorities in India, for example, Clean India, Digital India, Skilling India, if those kind of programs are being offered, they will be always seen much, much more positive light. And the third is if you're offering any niche kind of programs, for instance, technology programs like AI, cybersecurity, forensics, these are very few institutions in India today offer these programs, and the skill sets of the faculty exist are also very low. And therefore, if any institution is offering these kind of programs, the government will be very positive on that outcome. As soon as you file an application, there is, I think, within a week's time now, is what they're proposing. They will set up a face-to-face interaction with the UGC and with the standing committee, where the applicant would be asked to come and explain the business case, the entire plans, what they have in place, and what they're looking at doing. And therefore, the processing of the application then becomes much more easier from that point of view when they have heard it from the applicant themselves. At the moment, the government is prioritizing universities from these four locations: UK, US, Australia, and Singapore. And the reason being that they want to showcase best of universities coming to India, and therefore they're looking at prioritizing these universities. And one last thing is there is an it's very important because the regulators today are very open and pragmatic and very willing to support, and continuous engagement with both UGC and Ministry of Education, I feel, is very critical. They'll be guiding us in the entire process through the application, through the operationalization, and through the final issuance of license. So I think a continuous dialogue needs to be maintained there. That's, in my view, very a positive thing. Uh, I'll take a pause at the moment, hand it over to Monica. Monica, happy to get your thoughts on the whole process, and then happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Sahil. That was excellent. Sorry, I'm coming in, jumping in here.
Please do, Tara.
Only to say thank you. That was really, those few slides actually captured all the kind of key points really well. And it's really good also just to see in terms of this last slide, the positive considerations that you've highlighted, because these are all the areas that UKIBC focuses on for our UK universities in India in terms of the research, the importance of partnering with Indian industry, academia, and community, aligning with India's economic priorities for the programs. And so it's really great to see that mirrored from the Indian government's point of view. It augurs well for us. And now just to pass it to Monica. So quickly to introduce Monica. Monica Srivastav is a partner in the corporate M&A practice at Khaitan and Co. based in Delhi. She heads the education practice at the firm and also has significant experience helping edtech companies, education companies, universities, sponsors, strategic groups. She's currently advising foreign universities looking to set up campuses in GIFT City and other parts of India on the various structuring, regulatory, strategic, and operational matters. And Monica is actually a dual qualified lawyer, having worked at Linklaters in London before joining Khaitan. So, um, Monica is a real expert in this space, just like Sahil. So over to you, dear Monica. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tara, and thanks, Sahil, for that amazing and comprehensive coverage of the new foreign campus in India, foreign university campus in India regulations. I do have a very short deck, and that's mainly to set out the points that I will be discussing in the next 15 minutes or so. But let me just check once if you're able to see this. Is it full screen, Sahil? I see you nodding.
I don't see it as full screen, Monica.
It's not full screen yet.
It needs to just be expanded if you don't mind.
Yeah,
We
no,
can see it, but just it's smaller than.
yeah, I'm trying to make it full screen. Allow me a second. Just bear with me. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It is a short deck. It's
Yeah,
three
it is a very
slides.
short
Okay.
deck.
Yes, we can see it now. Good stuff.
Perfect. So before I get into the deck, there are, just a few points that I wanted to bring out just in terms of, context setting. And I want to share with you what I have experienced when discussing this regime with clients. So this regulation came out in November in 2023. It's not even been a year, and as soon as it came out, I think we spent at least 2 or 3 weeks after that talking to a number of our clients and other advisors in terms of decoding these regulations. And one of the questions that we were often asked, it was almost like crystal ball gazing, was when do you think people would really act on this new regime and actually open up a campus in India? And we were super positive about this. I think this regime brings some overarching changes in terms of what it is doing for foreign universities that in some ways nobody on the Indian side expected. And so there was a lot of optimism around this. And I remember about a year ago saying that I think within a year there will be at least one or two. And I was very, very pleased to see that Southampton's already announced this campus and have gotten their LOI, etc. The second thing I would mention is that we were doing a series of events on K-12, and K-12 has, in many ways, had a similar story on the UK-India corridor, which is that a number of your heritage and prestigious schools like Harrow and Wellington and Shrewsbury have either already opened up in India and brought their campuses here, or are in the process of doing it. And when I met members of the UK High Commission in India, everybody started conversations with, look what Shrewsbury has done, look what Southampton's doing. And every keynote speech started with, look at these developments. So I think there's been a lot of positivity around this. And rightly so, as Sahil explained, the regime is quite flexible. It gives a lot of autonomy. Um, the one reason that from a legal point of view, I believe this regime is game changing, and I think Sahil's already covered that in some sense, is that in India, for all kinds of formal education, whether it's higher ed or K-12, you need a not-for-profit entity to be able to do that kind of activity. And the reason for that is that education is treated as a public service in India and must be run in a charitable manner. The only time the government has made an exception to this rule is when they came out with this regulation to attract foreign universities to India. So that should show you how committed the government is to making it easy for foreign universities to come and set up their campuses here. What I've put on this slide now is just 10 themes or 10 points which I think are important business decisions that need to be made when you think of a campus in India. And all of them have some touch points with regulatory matters. So in the next 10 minutes or so, that's what I'm hoping to cover. And of course, very happy to take questions. On the first point on course offerings, like Sahil explained, assuming you're not going to give city, you're not restricted in terms of what you can offer. And when I say that, I mean in terms of subjects. So you can do STEM, you can do management, you can do liberal arts, any of these are possible. And it's also possible to structure them as degree programs or diploma programs or even certificates. So all of this is completely open-ended. The few things to keep in mind, though, are that if you seek approval at the initial stages for certain programs, and then you, after a few years, you want to add a few more programs that become subject to UGC's approval once again. And so it's important to consider and do your market survey, and decide what kind of courses you might be looking to launch in the first 5 or 10 years. So I think the key there is to look at a long-term horizon rather than a shorter horizon. The other is, and I think Sahil has covered this very well as well, there is a demand supply issue here. Um, STEM education is offered very widely in India, but once again, the kind of curriculums and the kind of content you will bring to Indian students as foreign universities, I think can be very different, and that's really the difference in your offering. So STEM is again very much attracting students. Management, I mean, if you look at data coming out of Indian higher education for the last 3 years, you'll find that the number of people taking management courses in India, with Stanford's and Harvard setting up their executive programs right here in India, I think has gone up. And so management continues to be very attractive. And on the liberal arts side, there is a steep gap between where the demand is at and where the supply is at. There are a few good universities such as Ashoka and Flame, and Tara was talking about them earlier on. But the rest of the market is more science and STEM oriented. So I think it's a very good question to ask at the very beginning when you're thinking about bringing your campus to India, on what you're really looking to offer and how much you can plan in advance. When I talk about choice of city, I think the key point to be made there is, of course, there are certain major cities in India, which is where most of the business gravitates to, right? These are the business centers. And that means top cities like Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore or Hyderabad. But I think equally important is to keep an eye on what's happening in the up and coming cities. You can call them tier two cities, tier B cities. Some of these can actually attract not just the local demographic in those cities, but also on a pan-India basis. So for example, if you look at Shrewsbury, and once again, I'm borrowing from a K-12, if you look at Shrewsbury, they've decided to open up in Bhopal, which is very centrally located and can potentially attract its students from Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore, all of which are about an hour away by flight to Bhopal. So the point really is there is a bit of a push and pull when you choose the city. Cities, the larger cities, which are business centers, will likely have less space, and so you have to make some compromises on that front in terms of how large you want this the plot size or the land to be, and how much you're able to get in those cities. Uh, as compared to somewhere like a Goa or a Bhopal or an Indore or Chandigarh, where you can potentially access larger campuses. So I think those decisions become very important. And I'll jump from that point two to point six, which is on the real estate side. I think on the real estate side, a lot of what we are hearing is that I think there are two ends to the spectrum there. We've spoken to universities who are very keen on bringing their campus experience to India, which means building large campuses with green spaces, very similar to the kind of brand and quality you have for your campus in UK. And then there are universities on the other end of the spectrum who want to start small and maybe even take a purpose-built space from a developer, do some fit outs, and get started with a few hundred students across let's say 4 or 5 courses. And I think both models are becoming very popular. What I can share with you from a real estate perspective is that as things stand today in India, some of the large private equity investors like Blackstone and Brookfield have become the largest landlords in India when it comes to commercial real estate. And so, compared to 10 years ago, today you will find a lot of good commercial spaces which can easily be converted into a very modern university campus. And that means you can reduce your lead time for the construction and development piece and get going pretty quickly. And that also means that you can access the top tier cities. And of course, the regulations enable these kind of real estate arrangements, which were difficult in other aspects of the sector. So I think that's all good news. Coming back to price point number three, the reason I'm raising this is because this is important for the modeling you do for your India business and how you prepare yourself for the campus here. The experience with Gift City has been that a couple of Australian universities who opened up here, they chose a price point. And when I say that, I mean, what is their tuition fee in India? They chose a price point which was easily 30 to 40% lower than what they are offering in their home campus. And I mean, it's obvious the idea is to customize it to this market, and it recognizes the fact that there will be students from India who will still want to go to the international campus, or what you call your home campus, and get that international experience. And on the other hand, there might be students who simply can't afford that and therefore would jump at an opportunity where they can get international education right here in India without having to spend the money in travel and accommodation costs and things like that. So I think you have full autonomy when it comes to UGC and this regulation in terms of how you want to set up your fee structure. But I think the key there is to understand what is exactly the profile of the student you are looking to attract, and therefore how you can make the price point attractive for them. Moving on, I think potential partners is a very important one. Like I said at the beginning, because NFP or not for profit entity is not a strict legal requirement here, it means all kinds of M&A style deal making is possible to do this campus. You can partner with another foreign university. That's I think that's an obvious one, and the government's okay with that as long as both partners are eligible under this regulation. But I think the interesting bit in this regulation is that you can also partner with somebody who's a global education provider who can put in some capital and therefore de-risk the model for you, who can also take over the operational burdens. There's a whole host of things that you need to take care of other than the academic side in terms of campus management and recruitment and marketing and etc. Right? And I think bringing a partner like that helps you navigate some of this complexity for a fresh or a new business vertical, but also helps you de-risk the model to some extent. So I think those are potential partners that we're already seeing. We know that a few universities who are considering their setup in Gift City are looking for partners like that, or already in process of working out those partnerships. The other thing that I would encourage you to think about is that there is the usual universe of people we think of as partners, right? Or as natural partners, such as another foreign university or another Indian university or a global education company. But I think that you might find unlikely partners as well who can bring good value to the partnership. And when I say that, one subset of people I'm referring to is edtech companies. I mean, Indian edtech companies have seen crazy fundraising through the pandemic. Many of them continue to be very resilient, continue to be doing very well, and are extremely ambitious about getting into the formal education market and the offline education market, and actively seeking conversations with foreign universities to see if they might find some alignment. So I would say that speaking to advisors, connecting with your networks to see what kind of partners may be well suited to your campus in India is certainly a good idea, and definitely an important conversation at the initial stages. Um, on funding, I think the key message that I'm hearing is that private equity interest remains very strong in this space. So far, the only way private equity groups or funds have been able to access the Indian higher education market is where they have invested in a platform somebody like a Gus, somebody like a Laureate, somebody like Galileo. I think those are the kind of people they've been able to invest in and then use them to build their higher education portfolio in India. What this regulation will do is that it will allow private equity to enter the market too. And what I mean by that is, let's say one of you wanted to set up your campus in India, but also partner up with somebody to bring in capital. You could effectively set up an Indian entity or even a UK entity and raise capital in that entity from a private equity fund and then use that funding to build your campus in India. Obviously, that comes with its own pressures of returning the money to the investors and things like that. But I think the point I'm trying to make there is that given this is a capital intensive kind of project where you need to wait for a significant period of time before you can take the value out, it might help to know that you can access equity as well as debt funding when it comes to this particular regime. Moving on, I'll go, since we've covered real estate, I'll move to faculty. So faculty is one of the key areas where I hear businesses uh, struggling with issues, not just pre-setup, but post-setup. And the prime reason for that is that A, it's difficult to attract the best talent in the market, and B, very hard to retain them. And so most UK education businesses which have entered the Indian market have used some kind of formula of part UK faculty and part Indian faculty. And that's fine, but what you need to remember is that the regulation requires you to maintain the same faculty standards as you have in your home campus. So you're free to set up their faculty compensation, you're free to set up what are the standards or qualifications that you expect from your faculty members, but the government expects that whatever faculty you bring to your India campus should be similar in terms of quality to what you have in your home campus. And to the extent that you feel that it's not enough to hire from the India side, I think it's important to bring faculty from UK, and that in itself runs into several tax challenges if you're flying people in and out in terms of permanent establishment and other things like that. So definitely an important point to consider, because it has a direct impact on your business. It also has a direct impact on what kind of tax implications you might be looking at for your India model. The campus and quality equivalence, I think this is one of the key concerns of the government under this regulation. They talk at length about equivalence. I like to call it the at par formula. Whether you look at the quality of the campus, the faculty, the degree or the outcome of the program that you do in India, on all of these aspects, basically what the government is saying is bring the same quality so that whatever degree you issue at the end of that program, it enjoys the same recognition and equivalence as a degree issued in your home campus. And I think that's a key point to remember when you are setting up the business in India. The one aspect of that I think we'll see as things play out is about outcomes. So even independent of this regime, some of the big conversations on the higher education side in India, and I also feel for rest of the world, have been around what is the outcome of the degree? Where does the student get jobs? Does he go to for further higher education, or is this better job access? And the Indian campuses of your universities will often be very, very far removed from, the recruitment networks you've built in your home country. And so how you'll bridge those gaps, I think, are important conversations that should be planned for in advance, so that, you're selling the right things and you're marketing the courses accordingly when you start selling your India campus. So I think those are the key points when it comes to equivalence. On tax implications, I would say there are different ways of structuring this campus, but the most efficient model, both from a tax perspective and from an Indian foreign exchange control perspective, would be if you had some kind of presence in India. And basically what that means is, if you set up a private company in India, that company will be subject to the Indian corporate tax regime, which is your usual regime. and whatever money it distributes to its shareholders is, has its own set of tax implications and treaty benefits and things like that. So that's one aspect that is very important to consider. The second aspect is, to the extent that part of the management of the India campus is directly being handled from your home campus, with foreign people flying in and out of India or providing certain services in India and things like that, that can have its own set of tax implications for your UK entity. And I think how that sits in with your India entity and its own tax regime needs to be evaluated very early on, so that you can minimize any tax leakages. For example, if we connect this point with the faculty point, if you had even your foreign faculty on the payrolls of the India entity, it would help show that the faculty is not effectively a service being provided by the foreign campus, and therefore is not subject to permanent establishment exposure. I mean, I'm obviously simplifying the issue, but things like that tie in together and therefore have an effect across your business. Governing law is another one that comes up very often in my conversations with UK universities. Obviously, the campus is going to be in India, and in that sense is subject to Indian law. But there are two key things to remember. One, from an education perspective, the government is not telling you how to issue your degree or what should your degree cover or what's the content, because they're effectively treating it like a foreign degree. It's simply being delivered in India. The second thing is that a lot of contractual arrangements will go into making this campus happen. These could be your funding arrangements, these could be arrangements with your developers. To the extent that any of these arrangements are with UK parties or offshore parties, it is very much possible to use English law as the governing law of your document, and at least that will dictate how that contract plays out and how you interpret the contract or how you manage disputes under the contract. And I know it gives a lot of comfort to UK businesses to know that, to the extent that they have these contracts, they're all governed by English law, which is what they're familiar with, and they can, they have a degree of certainty when it comes to managing disputes under English law. So I think that's very much possible, obviously keeping in mind that the campus will be subject to Indian law and to that extent local compliances and local taxes. But let me pause there. I think I was hoping to cover some of these business points to get you thinking about what are the kind of points you must consider when you start planning your India campus, over and beyond the regulatory process and the application that you would make. And many of these have some regulatory touch points, and I hope that was helpful. But I would love to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monica. That was super helpful. And I mean, there's so much to consider, but the way you laid it out, I think it was really useful to hear all the practical steps. And each one has got obviously much more detail that you aren't able to share so people can pick it up. But thanks so much. It gives a good overview. So we have about 10 minutes. Is there any burning questions that people have for either Sahil or Monica? Feel free to just ask, and then obviously we can take up any further ones later. I know they've covered a lot of ground, so it might be if there are no questions, it just shows how good you are in covering all the kind of key points.
So Tara, maybe we should offer this as well. Sorry, there's a question. Yes.
Sorry, there is a question from Owen. So and then Neil. So please go ahead, Owen.
Thank you so much.
Could you introduce yourself quickly, please? Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm Owen Knight. I'm Head of Market Insight at the University of London. We're kindly invited to the session today, and I'd like to thank the presenters for a really comprehensive and helpful overview there. I've got a question about setting up a campus and rankings. Apologies if I've missed something. But for dual and joint degrees, we understand that the foreign university needs to be top 1,000 globally. Does the same restriction apply with campuses?
There's a similar restriction, Owen. It's not exactly the same. They have been more flexible with the ranking requirement for eligibility in this foreign campus in India regs. What they're saying is, as long as you are in the top 500 of global rankings, either in the overall category or in a specific subject-wise category, then you're eligible. But the global rankings and which ones haven't been defined by the government. The other thing that they've said is, if you have outstanding expertise in a specific area, let's say that you're bringing a very specialized program in design or animation or AI, and you have very high rankings in that, then the government is open-minded about considering you as well. So they have opened up the eligibility a lot more than what they allowed under the collaboration and twinning framework.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Neil.
Thanks. I was just waiting for the go ahead. I think it's a similar question to what Owen's mentioned, but you've mentioned some already before. You talked about specific kind of specialisms. You talked about AI. You talked about cybersecurity. Do you think in the market, if you were looking to undertake this activity, you would have a much better chance of being successful if you were focusing on one of those areas which either match the Indian government's economic destination of where it wants to go, or where it sees that it's got gaps in the market?
So, Neil, I mean, Sahil, I'm happy to go, and maybe you can add. So Neil, frankly, Neil, I think the demographic advantage in India will play out very strongly, at least for the coming decade or so, and if not more. And by that I mean that that even if you were bringing a very mainstream course or program to India, which is already offered by Indian universities, but were able to differentiate yourself in terms of the content, curriculum, faculty, and the brand that you're bringing. Frankly, I mean, let's not forget that most important point, which is that you're bringing a very big brand to the student, right? And that means something in the job market. So I think that would succeed just as well. But there is, and I think Sahil touched upon this, there is, if you were to pick up one of the government's agenda items, such as Skilling India, yes, it could make the proposal that much more easy and attractive for the government. And I think there it's important to recognize, just like Skilling India or Green India, there are so many things, right? There's Make in India. There is a serious push on manufacturing, on EVs, on semiconductors, with many of these businesses coming to India, and AI. And the struggle is the talent in India. So I'll give you a very specific example. When Apple's contractors set up their manufacturing facilities in India, they found it hard to get local talent which was trained and had the skill set to work in those facilities. And so they needed leveling up, and training was needed. And many people jumped in and said, yes, we can do this. So I think spaces like that can certainly give you an advantage in some sense, because those are the sectors or areas where there is a more acute demand than some of the more mainstream subjects.
That's great advice. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Monica.
and if I can just add to what Monica is saying there, Neil, I think if I look from a demographic point of view in terms of the number of students who are opting for such kind of programs, today, because of the gap that exists across Indian institutions offering similar programs, there is very, very less institutions which offer this program, including the faculty set. We're seeing a huge amount of people actually going out of the country to study and learn these programs. About 1.3 million students every year go overseas. There's an outflow on account of this from a foreign exchange point of view to the extent of about $60 billion. And this number is only growing, right? And if we can offer these programs in India, there is an element of a huge set of population of about 2 to 3 million Indian students who are aspirational for getting these programs and degrees, but cannot afford to go overseas. And this is a talent pool that we can probably tap into when we look at setting up our courses and programs in India. Also, in terms of the fact that the affordability is going to be much higher, the government is expecting and hoping that some of these 1.3 million which go overseas would actually substitute and probably stay back and study in the India campus as well. So there's a twin kind of objective on that side.
That's great. Thank you very much.
We got another question from Ripon.
Sorry, I just realized I was on mute. Before I pass it to Ripon, I just wanted to say Neil. Neil is from Durham University, so thank you, Neil. And really important on these subject points. I think all these areas are key, but also the liberal arts and humanities. That's again gaps to fill because you need well-rounded employees. So that's definitely, I think, again, will be taken very positively by the Indian government. Thank you. Over to you, Ripon.
Hi everyone. It can be anyone, Shail or Monica, anyone can answer it. If I'm not wrong, UGC normally have a kind of a quota system based on your infrastructure on a mainland India. So any Indian university would operate normally say that, okay, this particular subject area you allowed to recruit only that many students. Now, when this foreign university setting up in mainland India, is the same restriction applied by UGC, or they are flexible to operate the way they operate in overseas based on their infrastructure and all these? They can dictate how many students they can recruit.
But there's no restriction, Ripon. Do as you like, and just disclose. I think what the government's basically saying is set up your courses, set up how many students you want for every course as per what you think you can do, and you can, I mean, deliver the quality. But the important thing for the government is make disclosures. So every year you prepare an annual report. You tell the government how many students graduated, how many students enrolled in each course, which programs were run. So you do need to do annual reporting. You need to do public disclosures by putting up information on your website and things like that. What they're expecting is transparency and good governance. They are not telling you how to govern yourselves or how to manage any aspect of your business.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And in addition, I think it's also important that you do this business planning right up front, because even when you're making the application, you need to give the numbers in terms of how many students will be coming in which courses for about 5 to 10 years. It's part of the application process as well. So I think it's important to kind of do that business planning right up front. But as Monica mentioned, no restrictions. It's as per your own plan. And depending upon the number of students that you're recruiting every year, you also can determine your own infrastructure needs and the campus size that you want to get. Fairly flexible.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. We have time for one more quick question, if anybody needs to get it off their chest. Okay. Probably not. So if I can just ask, we're going to wrap up. But just to say a huge thank you to Sahil and Monica. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your fantastic insights. They were really kind of in-depth but succinct and covered a lot of ground. And I'm sure that if there are questions, please, share them with us, and I'll circulate it to Sahil and Monica, and you can interact with them to kind of take it forward, anything that, occurs to you later. So thank you again, everybody. Can I just ask everyone to put on their cameras for a minute, and we'll take a photo, and we're going to just share it on socials, just to show what a good group we have.
While people are switching on their cameras, just one quick addition from my side. The
Yes.
11th November launch for the UKIBC's University Collaboration Report. We'll be present at that event too. And if some of you wanted a more detailed conversation on this regime or anything else, happy to plan that chat.
Yes. Thank you, Monica, for reminding me. Yes, so it's great because you're coming to London during that time. So fantastic, good opportunity to meet everybody. Yeah, and I do hope everyone will come as well for this event. Okay, thank you so much. Vidhi, will you take a photo and please tell everyone when it's done? Thanks.
Done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This was great.
And thank you for the
Thanks so
opportunity.
much.
Tara, just before everybody leaves, we need to ask them if they can send in some specific policy recommendations for whoever have shared their inputs for the university collaborations report. So
Okay, yeah. What I'll do is actually we're going to be sending just in terms of the report, because we're in the final stages, we need additional details. So we'll be sending out an email. If you could please prioritize that, that would be excellent, just because we'd like to showcase your university in the best possible way. So we'll send those details across. Just keep an eye out. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Tara.
Thanks so
Thanks.
much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.